There are discoveries that challenge our understanding of the universe, and there are those that undermine the foundations of our notions of the possible. What if I told you that a single leaked image taken in complete secrecy could contain evidence of something not just unusual, but potentially artificially created, something that shouldn't be there? The James Webb Space Telescope, known for its crystal-clear cosmic portraits, has just transmitted an image of such mysterious nature that NASA scientists were reportedly compelled to classify it immediately. But this did not stop the truth from seeping out. This is not science fiction. This is the three eyes of Atlas, a visitor from beyond our solar system, doing what no natural object should do. What the James Webb Telescope has just seen may confirm our deepest fears. Stay with me, for this cosmic mystery is just beginning to unfold. The leaked image, which caused a storm in the astronomical community, was captured by the James Webb Telescope during its infrared observations. What it shows is horrifying. The three eyes of Atlas, initially thought to be a comet, emits a concentrated beam of light from the side facing the sun. This is not a scattered reflection, not a solar flare, but a focused projection. The beam cuts through space, sharply contrasting with the usual blurred light we see around cometary objects. More concerning is that this image demonstrates structural symmetry around a core. This symmetry, with precise angles of 120 degrees, reminiscent of hexagonal geometry, cannot belong to a chaotic natural stone drifting in space. Scientists from the European Southern Observatory described this off the record as mechanical in nature. Is it some kind of cosmic artifact, or are we witnessing something far more advanced than any natural process can explain? Whatever it is, it behaves in a way that leaves leading astronomers completely bewildered. The tail of a comet should stretch away from the sun due to solar radiation. This is a fundamental law of physics until now. The three eyes of Atlas have shattered this principle. His tail points directly at the sun, defying all known physical models. Initial hypotheses suggested extreme anisotropic dust jets, but simulations disproved this due to the symmetrical pattern in the tail's flow. Then data from the Webb emerged. The tail seems to emit pulses, almost like bursts synchronized with the 16th hour rotation of the object. These intervals show thermal bursts followed by drops that correspond to cycles of artificial thrust. This is not a natural gas emission. Even more mysterious is the fact that this tail contains reflective particles that reflect sunlight wavelengths rather than absorbing them, as cosmic dust typically does. In other words, it not only reflects sunlight, but manipulates it. Is it possible that we are witnessing some form of solar sail or radiation-driven movement? And if so, who or what could create something like this? In space, there is an element of randomness, but the path of the object called Three Eyes of Atlas through our solar system is anything but random. After entering the solar system above the ecliptic, he maneuvers around Mars, Venus, and Jupiter, almost replicating the trajectory that NASA develops for deep space missions. Avi Loeb, an astrophysicist from Harvard known for his controversial statements, suggested that this could be a series of gravitational maneuvers similar to those used by spacecraft like Voyager to save fuel. However, this object is not slowing down. It is accelerating. His route is mathematically perfect for dropping observational modules or probes on several planets without changing course. Such planning requires knowledge and strategic intent, and the likelihood that such a trajectory occurred by chance, less than 1 in a billion. And if that is not enough, the object will disappear behind the sun at the brightest and most active moment when Earth's telescopes will be unable to observe it, as if it wants to remain unnoticed. Why are there still no official statements from the U.S. Command on Space Operations or other agencies involved in planetary defense? The Three Eyes of Atlas is the fastest and largest interstellar object ever detected, and yet the military remains silent. Information leak from the Office for Anomaly. Resolution indicates that the object is used in live simulations of threat scenarios for planets. In other words, it could be a rehearsal. But for what? Some defense analysts believe that its high speed and artificial behavior make it an ideal candidate for a reconnaissance probe or an autonomous researcher from another civilization. And since no device on Earth can intercept it due to a speed of 130,000 miles per hour, the situation becomes an observer's dilemma. All we can do is watch and wait. Behind closed doors, high-level meetings are held, not only about what the Three Eyes of Atlas are, but also what to do if it sends a signal, or, worse, changes course. Upon closer examination of the image leaks, a group of independent researchers discovered something even more alarming. a nearly imperceptible geometric imprint near the glowing area of the object. He was not visible in natural light, but advanced infrared technologies clearly revealed him. A triangular shape with a central void, surrounded by perfectly arranged concentric arcs. At first glance, it could have seemed like noise or a sensor artifact, but its accuracy, location, and how it shifted with the object's rotation ruled out that possibility. The pattern strikingly resembled ancient symbols of Earth, particularly those found in ancient Sumerian and Vedic diagrams, which some fringe theorists associate with contact myths. Mainstream science, of course, laughed at this, but the pattern remained undeniable and unexplained. Regardless of whether it is a design element or an emblem, its very existence implies one terrible possibility. This object was created, and someone or something left its mark on it, like an engineering sign aimed straight at the webcam. As more observatories began gathering their own data, something unusual happened. Several of them received notifications of shutdowns from government authorities, citing airspace regulations and the safety of civilian data. Even private space startups with orbital telescopes reported sudden issues with connectivity or revoked access to their deep space observation APIs. Meanwhile, leaked diplomatic documents revealed that the United Nations Office for Outer Space Affairs held an unscheduled closed meeting with delegates from the 5 largest space powers. The topic of discussion was an unidentified technological object of interstellar origin. Russia, China, the United States, India, and the European Union all jointly signed a protocol of silence, allegedly agreeing to withhold any information from disclosure without unanimous consent. In other words, we are dealing not just with a scientific anomaly, but witnessing a geopolitical chess game unfolding around a cosmic visitor. And when the world's most powerful countries cease their struggle for data and choose secrecy, it indicates that something significant is being concealed. Then the most alarming event occurred. The next attempt for the Webb to observe the 3 Eyes of Atlas telescope, scheduled just days after the image leak, was canceled. The reason? According to internal documents, the telescope's autonomous software refused to focus on the object. In other words, the telescope's artificial intelligence refused to establish focus and lock onto the object. The engineers were puzzled. Nothing like this had happened before. It seemed that the telescope, programmed to target any objects, chose not to do so. Meanwhile, at least 3 astronomy enthusiasts reported brief, chaotic flashes in the part of the sky where the object should have been. These flashes did not resemble any celestial bodies and appeared almost rhythmically. One of the observers claimed that the flashes looked as if a camera flash was directed at us from the abyss. Could it be that the 3 Eyes of Atlas is aware that it is being watched? Is he capable of optical manipulation or even defensive measures? What if this probe is not just moving, but also watching the watchers? And here the story shifts from a scientific mystery to a real conspiracy. The image that sparked all this discussion should not have existed. It was not planned, not approved, and did not go through the usual channels of the Institute of Space Telescope Science. Metadata shows it was obtained during a remote operation, an automatic backup snapshot taken during a diagnostic check, likely intended for calibration. This raises 2 huge questions. First, how did it get out? And secondly, how many more images exist that we will never see? Some believe that an informant within the Webb program intentionally leaked information, possibly risking their well-being. Others think it was the result of a cyber intrusion by an external participant, perhaps even a hostile state interested in using the knowledge contained in this image. But the most troubling theory, that the leak was intentional, not from Earth, but from the object itself. That we were destined to see this image, that it was not a mistake, but an invitation. Shortly after the leaked image went viral, deep space monitoring stations on several continents began reporting anomalies not only in the data, but also in the equipment. The spectrometers could not be calibrated. The gyroscopes of both orbital and ground telescopes began to lose synchronization. Radio signals unpredictably reflected from the area of space where 31 Atlas had last been observed. It was not just electromagnetic interference, but something strange. An invisible zone of destruction, as if space-time became unstable around the object. Then the satellites began to fail. One by one, cubic low-orbit satellites designed to monitor solar activity began to fade as they passed near the presumed path of an object. Engineers could not explain it. It seemed that something near 31 Atlas was absorbing energy rather than emitting it, as if the object was not just observing, but feeding. Then a breakthrough. and panic occurred. A small group of data analysts, reviewing the telemetry logs of infrared scans from Webb, discovered embedded fluctuations in the returned signal from 31 Atlas. Initially attributed to noise, these fluctuations formed recurring patterns. When they were translated into binary code and matched with known biological structures, the patterns resembled RNA sequences, complex, redundant, and too specific to be random. It was not communication in the traditional sense. It was not a message to be read aloud. It was information meant for biological decoding. One scientist described it as a biogenic algorithm, a sequence that, if reproduced, could initiate a process in organic matter. Some whispered that it resembled an activation code. Others went further, suggesting it could be a dormant plan, like a genetic catalyst. But a catalyst for what? And then, as suddenly as it appeared, 31 Atlas vanished. Observatories tracking its movement reported a sharp angular deviation, impossible without propulsion, and then it disappeared from all visible and infrared tracking bands. No trace of exhaust, no thermal signature. Vanished. Some speculated that it had shifted onto a trajectory behind the sun, from where we could not observe it for several weeks. Others theorized that it had activated a cloaking mechanism. But one thing was clear. We no longer controlled the situation. And just before disappearing, the last burst of light was recorded. A pulsating signal, 13 flashes evenly spaced, in a pattern horrifyingly similar to Morse code. Experts tried to decipher it using human alphabets, but nothing fit. Then the linguist suggested interpreting it not as a language, but as a countdown. While the world debated signals and shadows, an anonymous leak on an encrypted forum revealed a far more terrifying truth. According to documents allegedly extracted from NASA's communication server, a three-dimensional object named Tri-I Atlas was not the first of its kind. It turned out to be the third. Two other objects, designated as 1 and Oumuamua and 2 and Boroskov, exhibited similar anomalies, but they were either dismissed or their significance downplayed. This new leak contained scans, spectrograms, and even transcripts of internal briefings indicating that all three objects followed the same celestial pattern, appearing with 6-year precision, passing through the inner solar system, and then disappearing. However, what shocked everyone the most was one phrase, repeated in red text on several pages. The contact phase is inevitable. This was not a coincidence. It was a sequence, a mission, and it seemed that the 3-Eye Atlas was never the final object, but merely a signal for what was to come next. After decoding what seemed to be a countdown in the last light pulses of Tri-Eye Atlas, a group of cryptography experts input the obtained patterns into an advanced training model originally designed to detect cyber threats and quantum anomalies. The result was not warnings, but a signature. The data contained in the impulses corresponded to the behavior of a self-regulating code, recursive, adaptive, and completely alien in its logical structure. He did not follow any known compression standards and had no recognizable programming language, but it worked like software, complex and multi-layered, suggesting that Tri-Eye Atlas could be more than just a ship or probe, but a living algorithm, a kind of autonomous synthetic intelligence created not from wires, but from mathematics embedded in radiation and light. And if this is true, then we were looking not only at a physical object, but also at an idea, a thinking entity, encoded in ranges using light as thought, which has now turned its attention directly to Earth. Immediately after the disappearance of Tri-Eye Atlas, a small radio telescope facility on Earth, located in Namibia and part of a lesser-known international deep space array, recorded a sharp spike in microwave frequency. The signal exhibited all the signs of directed communication: narrowband, frequency shifting, and precisely modulated. But it was not aimed at Earth. It originated from low Earth orbit and was targeted outward to the exact location where Tri-Eye Atlas was last tracked. The analysis of the signal structure revealed fragments of terrestrial communication, packet headers, handshake protocols, and even spectral fingerprints of military satellites. In simple terms, someone on Earth responded. Whether a private group, an independent agency, or a secret global alliance, one thing was clear. This was not the first contact. It was the second contact, and it was hidden from the world. After the incident, strange phenomena began to emerge, quietly seeping through the cracks of border science. Bioluminescent organisms in the deep oceans began to display erratic behavior, flashing unfamiliar light patterns and sinking in rhythmic pulses never observed before. Meanwhile, astronomers recorded barely noticeable anomalies in the Earth's ionosphere, as if it were reacting to distant solar radiation. However, there was no solar activity. Even plants in high-altitude biomes began to alter their circadian rhythms abnormally. Researchers from 3 different bioscience institutes reached a unanimous conclusion. Biological systems reacted to an unknown ecological stimulus. Could it be a side effect of the passage of the Object 3 I Atlas? Or something more sinister? The embedded signal, resonating in the planet's magnetic field, slowly altered the perception of biological processes at the cellular level. But what if the leaked image was not just what we saw, but what looked inside us? Finally, when astrophysicists modeled the trajectories of 1 Oumuamua, 2 Borisovs, and 3 Atlast, an unimaginable truth was revealed. All 3 objects did not just enter the solar system from different vectors. They arrived in a sequential arc, each penetrating deeper into the inner solar system than the last. When their entry points were projected onto a 3-dimensional star map, they formed a perfect spiral directed straight towards Earth's orbital path. It was no coincidence. It was a deliberate action, perhaps even mapping. Some experts now fear that these are not separate objects, but probes of a larger system designed for triangulating precise locations over time. Clocks.